Hello, my writing friends. So today I'm specifically talking to writers. Although, readers, you can listen to this too and understand maybe how your writers come up with the books that you read. So I'm going to start by saying this is my personal opinion. I am not suggesting that you think my way or that you have to follow any specific rule because I do. What works for me may not work for you. Choose your own path, is what I'm saying. And don't dismiss what I say just because you don't like it. But today we're talking about what kind of writer are you? In order for me to do this, let me tell you first off, there are two main types of writers. Technically three, and I'll touch on the third. The two different types of writers are planners and pantsers. Now, me, personally, I am what is known as a pantser. And what this means is that I write by the seam of my pants. Meaning, when I sit down to write, I have little to no prep. I have an idea, and I just start typing, and I see where the story takes me. Honestly, I thought when I first started that I had to be crazy because a lot of the videos I saw, people talking about what it takes to be a writer, always talked about outlining, planning out every detail so you don't get stuck. But that just didn't feel right to me. So we're going to start with pantsers. As I said, a pantser, they just sit down and they begin typing or writing. You can do this with a rough draft. You can do this with notes. But a pantser will generally sit down and just start working on the story. Now, me personally, what I do is, as I go through my story, I started off making it feel and look on my computer like the final draft. I don't want to sit there after I'm all done writing the story and rewrite it. I don't want to sit there and go through and have to do a ton of more work with a rough draft. So my rough draft is usually as close to my final draft as I can make it. That means my chapter fonts are already set up. So now in every other chapter, I know what I'm going to do for every other chapter. If I come to a spot, which as you can see on screen, here is an example page from one of my books, I use different fonts for different things in my paperbacks. Now this is exclusive only to my paperbacks, but as you can see here, the character in this part of the story is looking at a sign. The sign he's looking at is written in a certain font. Therefore, in the book, the character is reading the font that looks like this. And I wanted to make an example of that for the readers in the book. Now, if you look at this page here, this is a news article that the character is reading. Here, you can actually see kind of an example of that news article that the character is reading. Now, when I went through and I did my rough draft, I did that with this in mind. I made this all up as I went along. That way, I can get a visualization of what the final draft is going to look like. Now, do I get stuck? No, not really. Writer's block is not something I generally have a problem with. Being a pantser, I kind of just let the story flow. Yeah, when I take a break or I have to stop for a time, go to bed, whatever, and I have to come back, I usually do reread the last few lines to put my mind back in that set. But I already know instantly where I'm already going because in the time I've been away, I've been thinking about, oh man, what could the story possibly go from here? There's so much. Where's it gonna go? Well, because I've been thinking that, I have a bunch of different options. And usually, my mind will just go right with the first option. I am currently working on book 6 of my series. There's a lot I want to put in, and there's still things I'm thinking of for chapters down the road, last minute, that I'm really excited to add in. Things that will make the book even better. I don't get stuck in the middle normally because, well, I've already got everything planned out in my head. And if it's good enough to remember when I get to that spot on the page, then it's pretty much good enough for my story. I've quoted Stephen King many times on this channel saying that, he says, if it's good enough for you to remember when you sit down and write, then it's good enough for your audience. The things you remember are the things your audience will remember. And by the way, Stephen King, from what I hear, is one of the leading pantsers in literature, which is kind of amazing because a lot of his books seem like they're interconnected. So that's a lot of things to remember. And a lot of things he's made up for his books. So having to remember special lore and stuff that intertwine is really great. Does this mean everybody should be a pantser? No. But if you are that kind of person, just realize that there are other people out there like that. Highly successful writers that are also pantsers. Maybe that is what works best for you. I don't know of any famous planners. I'm sure there are plenty. But moving on to planners. Now these are the types of people, which seems to be a majority of the YouTube writing community. These are the people that they have flowcharts, they have timelines, they have character sheets, they have notes. They walk around probably with a notebook and a pen, especially for their story. They probably have index cards that are color-coded. These are the types of people that are going to be extremely well organized. Everything is planned out. The only problem that they face is taking everything from their outline and their notes and their index cards and converting it into a book. Now, for these people, that probably works for them. They are probably that way in real life. Everything has to be organized. Everything has to be pre-planned way in advance. But for these people, planning things out works for them. For me, planning things out, being a planner, I don't see a lot of fun in that. I don't see the story as really being very creative. Paint by numbers kind of a story. You're meeting a certain deadline, a certain quota to do a certain thing. And to me, that's not entertaining. If it's not entertaining for me, I can't imagine how it would be entertaining to my audience. Maybe a certain portion of the audience likes that kind of stuff. I have met somebody that does ghostwriting for a publishing company, and they basically give her, from what I understand, all this information, what they want, and she basically writes them a short book based on all this information, which is pretty much all the stuff that's pre-planned out for her, pre-wrote out. She just has to convert all these things into a book, and she says she doesn't like it. She wishes she could do something else, but it pays good money, which I can't, fault her for that, if it pays great money, yeah, do it. It just doesn't seem very entertaining. It's like me and a buddy of mine, we were talking, And he had mentioned something about, oh, well, you could go to college and take creative writing classes. And I told him I don't need to. I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm some great author, because I don't know if that'll ever be true. I don't know if I'll ever be able to say that. I've been told by several people that I'm really good, really creative, but I feel like creativity comes from within. You can learn to paint, but if you don't have that creative spark inside you, are you ever going to paint anything that's great? You can know everything about a story arc. You can know everything about a character arc. Again, these are paint by numbers here. You know what separates the greatest stories out there? The fact that they don't always follow the rules. Think about some of the greatest stories you've ever heard. And really think if they necessarily follow the rules. Take, for example, I know I've talked about this many, many times, but take, for example, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. If you ask any Star Wars fan, go on, text your friendly neighborhood family member, whoever knows the most about Star Wars, and ask them, do they like Empire Strikes Back the most? Every Star Wars fan will usually typically say, yes, it's my favorite. Why is it their favorite? Ask them that. You'll either get one of two answers. A, because that's where we learn Darth Vader is Luke's father. Whoa! The bad guy is the father to the hero. Well, that's been done to death. It's not entertaining anymore. What's the second reason people like Empire so much? They'll typically say it's because the bad guys win. Well, that's been done to death too. So you can't really do that anymore. Although I would strongly say that there is evidence to support that the bad guys did not win in Empire Strikes Back. Well, I think I talked about it in a previous video. But, that's what they'll say. They'll say it's because the bad guys won. And, I mean, sure, if you want to look at it that way, that the bad guys won, fine. But that breaks the rule of the story. Now, maybe in the sense of a trilogy, it's fine because it makes the climax oh so better. But it broke the rules of having a beginning, a middle, and end. Having the hero rise, nearly fail, rise up again, overcoming the obstacle, and then winning the day. Luke did not win the day. He had to run away. He had to retreat. He goes off on a down note. So I guess you could say that the main reason why people like Empire so much in the Star Wars original trilogy is because it's the one movie where they broke the rule. The good guy did not overcome the bad guy in the climax. He was nearly killed and had to retreat the best way he could. And yes, maybe being a planner works for some people. But don't let people tell you it's the only way you can be a great writer. Because again, as I said, it's been shown that Stephen King is a writer who does write by the seat of his pants. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said I would talk about the third type of writer. And unfortunately, we are coming up on the 20-minute mark, which I would like to upload this to BitChute, which has a 20-minute timer for their videos. So I'm going to end this here. with part 1, and I will dive deeper into the rest of this in part 2. So if you're interested in seeing more about this topic, please make sure to stick around and click on part 2 and check out the rest of this video. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing today. Make sure to click the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.